A warm welcome to the very first episode of SciencePunk Explains the Frame Budget Approach. We're about to dive into a perspective that really challenges something we experience every single moment of our lives, the nature of time itself.
So let's just jump right in with the central puzzle. Have you ever thought about this? The fundamental equations of physics. I'm talking everything from Newton's laws to quantum mechanics. They work perfectly fine in reverse. They are completely time-symmetric. But our reality, well, it's a one-way street, isn't it? A glass shatters, but you will never, ever see the pieces just fly back together. This massive disconnect between the elegant, reversible math and our messy, irreversible world, that's one of the deepest problems in physics. It's what's known as the arrow of time.
And this slide just nails that divide perfectly. On one side, you've got the world of mathematical physics. Everything's neat and tidy. You can calculate a planet's orbit forwards into the future or backwards into the past using the exact same equations. They just don't care about direction. But then, on the other side, there's our world, the one we actually live in, where things are irreversible. Time has a definite direction. And look, this isn't just some philosophical question. It's a fundamental conflict right at the heart of how we describe the universe. So how do we possibly bridge this gap?
To get our heads around this, here's our plan for this explainer. First, we're going to dig into this problem with time. Then we'll introduce the core building blocks of the frame budget approach, something called frames, clicks, and cost. After that, we'll take a look at the brand new toolkit this approach hands us. And finally, we'll zoom out to see the new landscape of physics it might just open up.
Okay, Section 1, the problem with time. I want you to think of physics as having two different clocks. One is the theoretical clock you find in the equations, and it can tick forwards and backwards, no problem. The other is the clock of reality, which, as we all know, only ever ticks forward. Now, the frame budget approach doesn't try to fix one of these clocks. Instead, it suggests that maybe, just maybe, we're thinking about change itself in the wrong way. And that brings us right to Section 2, and a really fundamental shift in perspective. You see, the frame budget approach, or FBA for short, isn't a new law of physics. It's a whole different way of looking at physical events. It basically argues that instead of starting with this idea of a background time that everything happens in, we should start with the happenings themselves. The first core concept to get is the frame. Imagine reality as a strip of film. A single frame isn't some kind of God's eye view of the entire universe at once. Not at all. It's simply a practical snapshot of everything we can measure and interact with in one moment. So in this view, the universe isn't some smoothly flowing river. It's a sequence of these distinct, static frames. So, how do we get from one frame to the next? Well, we do it through something called a minimal event. This is the smallest detectable change possible. Think of it as a fundamental click of the universe's machinery. When a click happens, we move from frame n to frame n+1. And here's the really key part. That index, the n, isn't counting seconds. It's just counting the number of events that have happened. This leads us to the third big concept, the budget. Now, the central idea here is incredibly simple but also profound. Change is not free. Every single click from one frame to the next has a cost. Think of it like a computational resource. To render the next frame of reality, there's a finite budget of change that can be spent. And this one constraint, that every update has a price, well, that changes everything. This quote right here really captures the heart of the FBA's radical redefinition of time. Time is not a substance, but the accumulated, budgeted, internal work along a path. What does that mean? It means time isn't some universal river we're all just floating down. It's an emergent property. It's the bookkeeping of all the costly changes that have happened to a system. Your clock and my clock might tick differently, for the simple reason that they've accumulated different amounts of this budgeted change. Okay, so we have our building blocks: frames, clicks, and budgets. This takes us into our third section, the FBA's new toolkit. You see, these concepts give us a new, very precise and operational language to describe how change actually happens in the world, a language that's built on something like accounting principles. Take a look at this diagram. It shows the step from one frame, let's call it Fn, to the very next one, Fn+1. The FBA sees this as a kind of balanced transaction. The total budget for that one step gets broken down. Some of it is external work. That's what changes the system's relationship with its environment. Some is internal reversible, changes that could, in theory, be undone. And then there's the internal irreversible part. This is the portion of the budget that you just can't get back. It's the cost that sticks around for good. So this gives us a whole new set of tools.
We get concepts like accounting boundaries to clearly define our system, and channels to describe how changes are actually passed along. It insists on operational definitions that are tied to real physical measurements. This level of precision lets us define irreversible contributions. That's the part of the budget that builds up as aging, which is what gives us the arrow of time. And most importantly, all of this leads to testability. That is, making concrete claims that we can actually go out and try to prove or disprove.
All right, so we've got this new language, this new way of doing the books for reality. This brings us to our final section, a new physics landscape. And the big question is, so what, right? Why go through all this trouble to redefine everything? What does this new perspective actually get us?
Well, the potential payoff here is enormous. Instead of just assuming fundamental features of our universe, the FBA offers a way to derive them. Things like the flow of time and the structure of special relativity could emerge directly from this logic of budget keeping. It might even provide a shared language for quantum mechanics and general relativity, our two most successful yet totally incompatible theories. You see, this isn't just a clever relabeling of old ideas, it's a fundamentally different way of reading physics.
And this approach gives us a really clear journey to follow this season. We can start by really digging into irreversibility. From there, we can explore boundaries and channels, and then get into the details of budgets and definitions. This path leads us directly to understanding the emergent nature of time, and finally to how we can actually test these ideas through measurement. It's a logical progression that builds a complete picture, one concept at a time.
So to wrap up this first explainer, let's just hit the key takeaways. First, the FBA is a fundamental shift in perspective. We're moving away from a background time and towards discrete, budgeted changes. Second, its core building blocks are frames, minimal events, and budgets, or, put simply, snapshots, clicks, and costs. Third, and this is maybe the most radical part, time itself is emergent. It's the result of accumulated, irreversible internal work. And finally, all of this gives us a new, strict, and testable operational toolkit for describing reality.
In our next explainer, we're going to challenge a concept that's often used as the final word on the arrow of time. We're going to ask, is irreversibility really explained just by saying the word entropy? I think you'll find the answer is far more interesting than you might think.
And I'll leave you with one final thought. The frame budget approach suggests a really fascinating question. What if the deepest laws of physics aren't about what things are, but about what is accountable? What if the universe is, at its very heart, a system of cosmic bookkeeping? Bye for now, until the next episode, and stay curious.